Welcome to our latest video where we'll be exploring the power of ChatGPT for data analytics. As a language model trained by OpenAI, ChatGPT is revolutionizing the way we analyze and understand data. With its advanced natural language processing capabilities, ChatGPT can help us make sense of complex data sets and extract insights that were previously impossible to find. Thanks, ChatGPT. Apparently, it is taking all of our jobs, which is great. Let's have a little fun with it before it does. So we're going to do two different things today. We're going to use this regular interface that you've probably all used already. If not, where have you been in the last 6 months? As well as check out a way you can connect to that API to pull in those awesome answers into Google Sheets. A lot of different programs are doing that. We're going to try one out today. First, let's check out the regular interface. Go ahead and pop into that URL that we are at now, that chat.openai.com/chat. If you've already got an account signed up there, here's our prompts bar there where we can type in anything. So today we're going to take a piece of data that we already have and then see if we can analyze it. So depending on the prompts you use, it seems to refuse that. And it also seems to do it incredibly well. So I have one example here. I'm asking it to paste a table of data so it can analyze some social media insights. It says, unfortunately, I'm unable to view any tables or attachment as I'm a text-based AI language model. That's not true. You can definitely view tables. I pasted it in there. It's responded back. I don't know what it's talking about. It seems like it doesn't know its own capabilities. And then it gives me an unhelpful answer. So what we can do is work with a different prompt that's going to get us an actually incredible answer. That's the table that I pasted down there. And then I get a full-on, almost professional answer. Now, obviously, it's not always going to be right. The numbers, I wouldn't send a rocket ship to space on. So you want to double check those numbers. But as far as like the structure of things, where it might lead to some standout posts and things like that, I asked it to give us beyond insights, like what an outlier that might have more engagement or something like that look like. And it did an incredible job. This is exactly what would be a good answer on a quiz or midterm. So we're going to pop in here and I am going to use a piece of data from Rival IQ, which is a great social media benchmarking comparison site. And they have a trial account that you can sign up for a couple of weeks and be able to download data across all of the social media platforms. And it gives you a CSV export. So you can look at those 4 companies that are in your landscape across Facebook, YouTube, and beyond. And they have data that looks like this. So they have 2 exports that we usually look at. There's the sort of daily values, cross-channel data. Then they also have a totals version of that. Or they have the top posts in that landscape. So for those 4 companies, what those top posts are. So we're going to grab that's right here in Excel. And we're just going to take the first 25 rows because ChatGPT does have some limits here for this consumer version of it if you're not on the paid account and everything. And even then, it does have a limit as well for what you can put in at one time. It's more for GPT-4 than 3 or 3.5 Turbo or whatever. We're just going to cut it down to 25. So highlight those 25 rows and copy it if you can get that file. You could also do this with all sorts of other things, but this is just the example data file we're going to use for today. So I have that ready. I'm going to go ahead and snag these prompts that actually worked. So one thing we can always do is learn from the past. And so I'm going to ask this again, since it happened to work this way. If you figure out how to ask it in one prompt and get it going, great. But I'm going to ask it here what happens. It did say yes this time. Sometimes it says no, so that's great. So it's giving me a little bit different of a prompt. What did I say after that? I said I'd like to know which type of posts were most effective and highlights of which companies were best, along with outliers stood out. And then I separated that from the data with colons. So we're going to go ahead and try this same thing. And I'm going to do Shift Enter so I don't do the send. And I'm going to paste in those first 25 rows. Let's see what happens. ChatGPT is thinking. And okay, we don't need to import it into Excel or Google Sheets. It was already there, but let's see what happens. It does still do the analysis, even though it said it couldn't do it because it needed to import it there. So it's just trying to predict that next word. And so I guess some pages told it that what you would do to analyze it is put it in something like Excel, or we use Tableau, but same kind of deal. But it looks like it went ahead and did the analysis anyway. It's got outliers that stood out with the engagements. It actually looks fantastic. So Nice work, ChatGPT, on this. Let's review the output. Ignore that first paragraph. It's just a throwaway. Got looking at the data. This is correct. It was the two companies. It was Osmia Skincare and hers. Posted on Instagram, and we can see includes date and time, blah, blah, blah. So that is accurate about the fields that were available there. Sometimes ChatGPT goes to extreme detail on that, and sometimes not. So you could ask a follow-up question if you wanted to know how something was calculated, like how is amplification calculated. So the post with highest total engagement was on January 29th. So nice and specific on that date. And it got 2,098 engagements. And it even knows it's a photo with a call to action to visit a link for personalized mental health services. So very specific, really nice that they're able to figure that out. And it appears that posts with a call to action or that offer value to the audience are more effective than posts that simply advertise products. So that's an incredible insight. That's really good. Obviously, you want to look at your own data and make sure that matches up, but that is the style of analysis that's very helpful. Instead of just a long list of things or just a scatter plot of different things with engagements, you're like, what are the trends? What are the categories of posts? What are the types of posts, the times of day? All of these different elements of a post that helps you make decisions about what you want to do next by looking at what's happened in the past. A lot of interesting stuff here, and outliers are cool. So we can learn from outliers. Maybe it's just something viral. It's a one-time thing. Maybe it's something that we can learn from. Those are the things that we want to double down on or make sure we don't forget to do, because not everything could be viral, but maybe there's something to learn and invest more in. In this case, Valentine's Day apparently didn't do too well, so that's sad. But anyway, the data goes online. We'll also look at ChatGPT in Sheets next. We're going to use ChatGPT for Google Sheets. So there's a number of plugins out there. Make sure you are using one that is legit and not a scam. There is a lot of junk out there that could potentially compromise your data, but this one's definitely real. And there's a couple others as well that I've tested. This one's GPT-4 Work by Tellurian or whatever that is. GPT for Sheets is the name. And if you click install to get started, you will see this on your Google Workplace Marketplace. So if you are at a company or an academic institution, perhaps, that does not allow a lot of these plugins for security reasons. They just shut almost all of them down except for the ones that are approved. So this one obviously not allowed by my administrator, but you could use a personal account to do this. Now, if you're already working with me and I have a sheet that I'm going to share with you, which may be the case for some of you out there, then we'll just use my account and you're all good to go. What you do need to do if you're doing this, not in my class, that you can set this up and it'll have an additional step when you're going through there. And this plugin site has some excellent YouTube videos on how to set that up. It's really easy. Plugin walks you through it. It's basically additional setup required. And then you log into your developer account for OpenAI, which I've got up here, and you will request an API key. So you'll create a new security key. You only see it once. So you cut and paste that, make sure you don't lose it. You can delete the old ones there. And then you will use that API key in that plugin. And then it knows it's you and knows who to charge. So the price dropped a lot in the last few months. Don't go too crazy and start running super analytics on my account if you're working with me, but that's how you would set that up. And I'll post that in the description below. The data we're going to use today for Sheets with GPT is from Vicinitas, which is bringing in Twitter data from the Twitter API. And right now it's free to download 2,000 tweets to a nice Excel XLSX file, while the Twitter API doesn't have them shut off for the free access. So that's obviously going to change in the future now that they're working more on monetization. But while you can grab that, we can do this. And this is work for anything you want to analyze, whatever that text may be. In this case, it is the text of the tweet. So I'm going to highlight that row, and you could double click this, but then it's massive there. I think what's helpful more in Excel, if you don't know already, you can highlight that column, click format cells, and go over here to that alignment tab and click wrap text. It's a little bit easier in Google Sheets, and we will see that in a second. But that text is what we're really going to look at to do a few things. So before we get too involved in this, we are going to paste this into Google Sheets as is and have some fun. So this is what it's going to end up looking like with the Sheets for GPT. We have a whole bunch of things that can unlock our imagination on what we could do with that text. And so a couple of things I came up with were suggested hashtags. So may or may not be valuable in the future of social media. Maybe AI is able to determine what kind of post matches what, and you don't really need hashtags, although it's still a cool way to organize things. So maybe these are some suggested hashtags. We've also got how can we classify a post. In order to determine what we can do more or less of, like I've said before in this video, this allows us to use GPT to take a post list of these different tags or classifications. You can actually use a different GPT function to select from those and classify that post. So this is the classification and it's drawing from that one. You can also do all sorts of fun ones as well. Maybe emoji posts work well with millennials, but not Gen Z. I don't know. That's a good hypothesis. So maybe the prompt for GPT is, does this tweet have an emoji or not? You could also write a little formula to do that, but that's one way you could do it with GPT. I can also create some instructions. So I can say, provide a level of sentiment on a scale from -1, so like a negative sentiment to the emotion of the tweet, to +1, 0 being neutral, and then provide that. You can also make up your own scale. So maybe it's 1 to 100. So that's what's really powerful about this. Instead of having some sort of set model, you can create your own instructions and have your own output in the format you want it. So that's pretty cool. You can also do a few things. I'm sure you've seen a few examples around the web on explain this principle of physics to me like I'm in 8th grade. And then it's a lot easier to digest and understand without having to have all of these other concepts that are these assumed presumptions. So that text is right here and I have it in the light blue. I like to organize things with the input being green and the output being this purple AI color, magenta, whatever that is. And then I also do formulas in blue. That corpse speak actually should be an input in green. So there we go. But one thing I thought was really cool is to figure out, use GPT, what is the emotion of that text? And in this case, it's excitement or enthusiasm. And then I created a regular formula from Google Sheets, just like in Excel. It's concatenate is the word for those of you that like a large vocabulary. And I just added revise and increase that same emotion. And so that's my new prompt. So then I had ChatGPT rewrite the emotion doubled. So instead of just saying funny little comments like Olipop has entered the lemon lime chat, which is pretty good for cultural context there. Oh my God, have you heard the news? They just announced it has officially entered the lemon lime chat. So get ready to experience the ultimate flavor explosion. So thought it'd be funny to do that. And then I also did the reverse on doing it completely bland into corpse speak. So that's fun. You can do a little Goldilocks of how it is doubled in emotion, what it is now, and then what would it be completely bland. So if someone acquired them and they're like, hey, your brand voice is a little too casual, you could show them this corpse speak and you'd be like, do you really want to go that far? Probably not. Stick with what made them successful and their great brand voice that you have. So to pop this up for an example, I've got a version of this. One of the ways we can set this up is to have one prompt in one column. There's a number of different ways to do this. This actually has a lot of great examples and documentation in the extensions guide here, and it has this whole practice area. It's awesome. You can do multiple columns for these. So like you can have different parts of a prompt being there, which we will use, but this is very simple. You can type in the prompt here and I'm going to copy it or drag and drop it down as further down there. And this is just going to keep the same one. And now you've got GPT calling column B2 here in this case, which is the text. That's our source data that we want to apply this to. And then it's bringing the prompt from that second one. And then you hit enter. Notice I did modify that prompt a little bit there. I set for it to just say yes or no. It has a tendency, especially when you're asking something that is a value judgment, like is this funny or not? Because it is an AI, it doesn't like to state an assertion that something is funny or not. It's trying to hold back these kind of opinions because it is not a human like us. It really depends on who you're talking to if that's actually funny. So it does give you that kind of long, verbose explanation unless you precisely describe the output that you want. And for the most part, it will agree. You might have to finagle around with that a little bit, but you can also drag and drop this all the way down and see what it creates. So it did give us a little bit of a trouble on the Brewer Energy one, but let's see. I will wrap that there. So you can go to format, wrapping, and you can either wrap it so you can see it, or sometimes if you didn't need to see all of this, you can go to wrapping and clip. If you didn't want to look at all of the text, that's a option as well. So I'm going to keep that in wrap so we can compare some of the other ones. But This one, it does give us that caveat, but it does acknowledge the reference to boomer energy. So I think it's trying to say it thinks it's funny, but it doesn't really want to commit to it. But that's okay. For the most part, it does give us some useful answers. It's saying these are not funny. One simple thing we can do is do some data formatting. So it's actually pretty amazing that it does this. Any of you have worked in data before, things like time and units of measure are actually some of the more difficult things that can happen just because of all of the differences and conversion between one or the other. Ask NASA about that one. But we've got UTC here for the universal time. Highlight this and let's do shift on 2 of these columns and click insert 2 columns to the right, or let's like hopped over that so you can drag and drop them right there. So one thing we can do here, again, we can wrap this in Google Sheets. You've got format, wrapping, and you can choose wrap or clip. Clip would cut it off so you don't necessarily have to see the rest of it, which I guess is fine. In this case, let's show you wrap. You'll see the whole thing and data there and format at the top and clip. So I don't really need to see it, but we want to change it here. So what we're going to do is use a different function from GPT and use, instead of a prompt, we're going to call it format. And we're going to stick with that color coding to do green as an input. If anyone is in Excel or Google Sheets a lot, some people like to color code a whole bunch. I'm going to use AI for the formula up here, and that'll be the new time or date. We'll see what we want to do. So we can actually say, instead of this UTC time, we're going to do ISO standard time. And I believe that'll pull back in American style time. We can do European time. So we're going to see that swapped with the month and date and the military time there as well. Hopefully you could even do Pacific time. It's the best time, or something else. Time in Bali, Indonesia. Let's see what happens. One of my favorite places in the world. So let's see if we can do GPT underscore format and then click that source data for the text that it's going to process. And we're going to choose the format there as our prompt. Hit enter and see what we have. We have an ISO standard that looks pretty normal. I'm going to drag and drop that down here, and it's going to pull those other formats and see what happens. Looks like we do have an answer. And we do have European time, Pacific time. We got a little PST at the end, and Bali time is WITA. Didn't recognize that last time, but let's try something new too. How about day of the week? And then we can either cut, paste, or drag and drop right there. See what happens. So there you go. Let's get crazy enthusiastic. So we're going to hop here. We've got text again. I'm going to highlight 4 columns because we need 4. And I'm going to click that and click insert 4 columns to the left of those. The first column is going to be instructions to get the emotions. What we were looking at before was which feeling or emotion is being expressed as the text. I'm going to put that in our prompt. I'm just going to call this emotion instructions. You can call it prompt, whatever. I keep these separately as we're talking through them. Could be just a set of different prompts, but it's the same concept here. We're using that regular GPT instruction, and this is going to be an output. I'm using that same color coding to go to magenta or purple or whatever we want to do. For that, we're going to go GPT function, our source texts, and the emotion instructions there. And so we're going to get an emotion, hopefully excitement or enthusiasm, and we're going to drag that down here. So normally I want to do at least 25 or 50 results. You could do a lot more to have some really good statistically significant results, but these are pretty interesting. So what I want to do here is do that regular kind of Sheets formula. Do is equals concatenates there and choose a quote and type increase significantly or exaggerates, comma, quote, space, quote, comma, click the cell, and there you go. So it's got a space in between those, and I'm going to hit enter. And now it's taking that autofill, at least in Google Sheets and Excel, sometimes they'll do that. If not, you can cut and paste or drag and drop that. And let's see what happens there. So that is our text to increase emotions. And now we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to call this GPT edits. So I'm equals GPT underscore edits, parentheses. I want the source text as the first one, comma. My prompt is going to be this text to increase emotions. See what loads. There you go. So now instead of saying Olipop has entered the lemon lime chat like I mentioned before, oh my God, you have to check this out. So there we go. We have this exaggerated emotion thing. And you can change this prompt to whatever you want. Maybe you want to make it funnier. Maybe you want to make it more engaging. Maybe you want to make it appeal more to a technical person. So there's lots of different fun things we can do. And this is all broken out. You could probably all do it in one GPT column. You could actually not have to cut and paste everything and put it in a little separate thing. But I like to keep it clean like this. So give this a go. Be as creative as you can and explore other different ways to bring in the power of GPT to your text and find new insights and new ideas and everything to see where we're going with this.